This is Tom Allen of Sen Blumenthal's office. Thank you all for participating this morning. Thank you for your patience. We're just going to get right into it. I'm going to turn it over to the senator. If anybody does have any issues during this, and specifically any technical issues, feel free to shoot me a message, or my colleague Chris Colby shoot us a message. We'll do what we can to help out. With that, we'll get things started. Senator, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Great of you to join. I wanted to just be available to give you an update on where we are down here on the COVID relief package. The American Rescue Plan will be approved by the United States Senate within probably the next 48 hours. We will begin today at about 11 a.m., what is fondly known as the Vote-O-Rama, which will consist of mostly Republicans offering unlimited numbers of amendments. About 100 have been filed. That may take us into tomorrow, going straight through the night. But eventually, this $1.9 trillion COVID relief plan will be passed. It will look pretty similar, if not identical, to what it is right now, providing about $4 billion to the state of Connecticut in aid to state and local governments. That's a top line that is especially meaningful to Connecticut right now. That will be part of the $350 billion to $400 billion going to state and local governments around the country. And it is vital to vaccine delivery, school reopening, and other essential services, including fire, police, first responder at the state and local level. But the aid to state and local governments is only one part of a massive program to conquer the pandemic and put America back to work, consisting of about $130 billion to reopen schools, direct aid to school districts, including Connecticut, $160 billion for vaccine manufacture, delivery, other health services, and then, of course, the stimulus payments, $1,400 per person with an income threshold of $75,000 per person. That stimulus payment threshold has been modified to target the neediest of individuals and families so that it will end with a $80,000 cutoff. In other words, anybody making more than $80,000 receives nothing. In addition, the $15 per hour minimum wage provision has been eliminated, but there continues to be major aid for unemployment insurance, nutrition assistance, eviction aid, other kinds of rental assistance, and aid for the restaurants and venues, other kinds of entertainment and concert halls, robust aid for small businesses and others who have really been hanging by a thread. Many of these small businesses continue to be hard pressed. So this program is a major effort to not only conquer the pandemic, but put America back to work, assure that hardworking Connecticut families have food on the table, medicines and clothing for their children, and also that jobs are revived and created. We've listened to people about what they think is most important and the urgency of this moment. Truly, it is a big and bold program, but it meets the moment. And for anybody who's saying the economy is reviving, the unemployment numbers are encouraging today, we want to make sure that this momentum is sustained and intensified. The momentum that we see now in our economy could falter and turn back without this kind of robust program. And we want to make sure that we learn the lesson from 2008 and 2009, when there was much longer unemployment than we thought was necessary And we want to make sure that we learn from the mistakes of 2008, 2009, and go big and do it now. So let me just finish with what we think will be the timetable. As we begin amendments today, almost certainly we'll finish sometime on Saturday or Sunday. The bill will be approved by the Senate. It will go back to the House. We hope, we expect, approved next week, and then go to the President's desk before mid-July, as you know, mid-March. It will go to the President's desk by mid-March so that we avoid the cutoff in unemployment insurance that now we anticipate for March 14th. We want to make sure that the people of Connecticut and around the country have the benefit of that unemployment insurance. It's so vital to sustain our families. It will be at the level of $400, not the $600 in the original package. That is going back a few months to the first unemployment insurance package, but we anticipate that it will help sustain the families of Connecticut as they face this cutoff in mid-March. I want to emphasize in closing how important the vaccine program is. As you know, there have been vaccine shortages in Connecticut. Connecticut has been ahead of the country in its vaccine program. It's been hampered by shortages. These funds and this investment in our supply chain for vaccines will help put it into the arms of everyone in Connecticut, we hope by the end of May, but certainly it will go to teachers. It will help reopen schools safely. It will provide availability to our essential workers. It will make sure that we have the delivery funding necessary for Connecticut and elsewhere in the country. And as we know about vaccines, we will never be safe as a country. We cannot overcome this pandemic unless everyone is safe and everyone has the vaccine. So we're going to encourage education and awareness to overcome hesitancy and focus on communities of color, which still have been lagging behind. This pandemic relief program has an important racial justice component to provide healthcare to communities of color in Connecticut and elsewhere that may be suffering disparities. And I am very proud that we have advanced this program so far. We hope for bipartisan support. Unfortunately, we anticipate it may be necessary to move forward without Republicans, but we're determined to get this measure to the president's desk so he can sign it and we can continue the American recovery and rescue. So thanks, everyone. Happy to take your questions.
Okay, if anybody has any questions, feel free to use the chat function indicated, or if you want to just chime in, feel free.
Hi, Senator. This is Emily Munson from Hearst, Connecticut Media. I wanted to jump in with a question about the education funding included in this bill. Yesterday, Senate Republicans held a press conference to criticize this education funding, saying that it was way too much money because the education funding included in the CARES Act and the December COVID bill were still being spent. And there was a CBO report released in mid-February that said because most of the education dollars from those previous bills remain to be spent, the CBO anticipates that the bulk of spending of the education funds provided in the reconciliation bill would occur after 2021. And I understand from speaking to education policy experts that this may underestimate the amount of funding that's already been allocated, but more generally, my question for you is, do you believe that the $130 billion for K-12 schools will actually reach these schools in time to help them with the reopening process? Or will this funding be targeted at more long-term effects of the pandemic, like learning loss, keeping on those additional teachers who were hired, upgrading HVAC, and so forth?
Emily, great question. And the answer is it will do both. It will meet immediate needs, and those needs are urgent, as you know from talking to Educators in Connecticut, there is an immediate need to replenish school budgets with spending on equipment, heating and ventilation modifications, the kinds of personal protection that teachers need, and also the vaccines that are going into teachers' arms. Eventually, students will receive vaccines once they are proved safe and effective for children. The need is not only short term, it is also to replenish the teaching time that has been lost. Many of our students have lagged behind even more during this period of pandemic. So they will need enrichment programs this summer and in years afterward. This nation faces an education crisis unlike any in our lifetimes, matching the magnitude and scope of the economic crisis and public health threat the pandemic posed. And it will be long-term in its effects. The programs must be long-term in their investment. This money is committed from the previous programs. It may not have actually been spent by the school districts, but they know how to use it and they need it, and they will need more funding. So when people say it's already been spent or not spent, I think what needs to be understood is whether it has been committed and whether it fits a real need. And anybody who talks to educators in Connecticut, and I've talked to teachers at every level, as well as administrators and of course the governor, there's no question in my mind that this money fills a real need in Connecticut and around the country.
Could I ask you one quick follow-up on this subject, sir, which is just one of the biggest concerns I've heard from superintendents is they're worried that the federal education dollars are going to supplant regular state education money. And I believe the House version of this bill contained a provision that would require states to maintain their funding for education at consistent levels. Are you aware of whether the Senate version is going to contain that same requirement so that states have consistent education funding?
The Senate version has much the same approach. States can't use this money to substitute for their own. They need to use it to fit and fill real needs. And they are barred also from using it to cut taxes. There are safeguards in this law to make sure the money reaches people where they live, where they're educated, where they work, to make sure that they're kept on payrolls. These kinds of safeguards and guardrails make sure that states fulfill their responsibility in using this money.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
If not, thank you, everyone. I'm reachable in case anybody has questions, and I'm sure that Senator Murphy and I will be contacting you. I think we'll probably plan something for Monday morning, and look forward to seeing you then. Thanks so much.